Hi everyone, this is Koinzell here, and today I have for you guys the other comp that I was thinking about for doing the Wanderer, which is the HyperCarry GEO Comp, where you have Yunjin and Zhongli. I know it's not very conventional per se, but Yunjin at least people are thinking of using with her Wanderer, right? So let's see how this goes. Basically, the comp is very straightforward. You have your animal main, in this case Wanderer, and animal support slash buffer either Faruzan or C4 Jin if you have. Geo buffer, which is Yunjin. Just FYI, Yunjin actually buffs more than Bennett for normal attack DPS typically. Okay, typically. But since we will lose Wanderer A1's passive Pyro Cryo buff, if we go with this instead of say the Bennett Layla comp that we did in Math Guide 2 and 2.1, it remains to be seen how it works out. And Geo Shielder I think is very straightforward, right? It's only for the stronger shield, the universal resistance threat, and also to enable the Geo Resonance bonus here. Okay, so in this comp we have the animal bonus and the Geo bonus. But animal bonus, although it reduces the skill cooldown, it doesn't reduce your rotation because the rotation is still depending also on your animation time, not just on cooldown. Okay, so this is obviously a comp that doesn't care about reactions, right? Because Geo and animal, there's no reaction. There's no reactions here. And you also don't care about Wanderer A1 passive because you're not getting anything out of it as well. So yeah, we will explore the math in this video to see the performance, whether it can measure up to say a Bennett Layla. Now in this comp, to maintain the 4 Nobliss and 4 TOTM buffs from the Bennett Layla comp, Faruzan is assumed to be using 4 Nobliss, while it's only using 4 Tenacity. Okay, TOTM. Yunjin is using 4 Hearts to optimize the buff. Simple, very straightforward. Now, in terms of the notes and assumptions, yeah, I'm going to do signature weapon, and actually I will show you guys more than 4 DPC. So yeah, obviously signature weapon will be used here. Wanderer's reaction damage, no reaction damage, right? Because you can't sword Geo. even for other comps, I'm not including the reaction damage because it's very low EM sword. Alright, so let's look at the rotations. Rotation is very straightforward. Without C6 Yunjin, you don't get that attack speed buff, so it's pretty much the same as the Bennett Layla, except for the actions involving Zhongli and Yunjin. This is how I will do it. Basically, Faruzan Q is now together in Faruzan's entire action window. Yunjin's E and Q is obviously right before Wanderer, so that we make sure that we utilize the 12 seconds from this, because the 12 seconds from this doesn't work for Faruzan Q. So there's no need to cast it after Faruzan Q, I mean. And Zhongli shield lasts for 20 seconds, so you can just cast it at the start. So this is how the overall rotations will work out. But once you have C6 Yunjin, it's a different story because we get more attack speed, right? 12% attack speed for C6 Yunjin. So yeah, the normal number of attacks increases accordingly, so we get more attacks. Simple as that. Duration wise, it's the same, 20 seconds for C0 and C1 plus C6 at 22 seconds because we don't have any hydro here. Okay, so energy math. Thankfully, with Yunjin using Favonius, we can maintain actually the same energy requirements on Faruzan and Wanderer. You notice it's the same. Okay, although energy number is slightly different, but it's still within a acceptable range. So the ER can remain the same. Oh, sorry, this should be, I forgot to change this. This should be 160. Yeah. Okay. So this is 160 ER. No worries. It is 160 ER. Yunjin ER can also remain the same as per existing. If you have already built your Yunjin should have around 180 to 200 ER, so that should be about right. Zhongli's ER doesn't really matter because we are not using his Q. It's more of a situational situation. You don't really use his Q every rotation. You can if you have C2. C2 applies the shield as well, right? Oh, and also I've assumed that his pillar doesn't always hit enemies, so it doesn't always generate energy as well. Otherwise, it will be more energy from Zhongli's E. Okay? And the same thing that I've mentioned before for all the Wanderer energy math is that you gotta remember that both Faruzan and Wanderer has a lot of energy over time. So if you don't have enough enemies, you're gonna need more ER because you don't get enough time to generate your other particles. Simple as that. Alright. So energy wise, no change from the Bennett Layla. Now let's look at the damage figures. I'm going to give you guys 3 different permutations, again similar to before, but this round is going to be C0 Faruzan with C0 Yunjin, C6 Faruzan with C0 Yunjin, and C6 Faruzan with C6 Yunjin. Okay, and I'll talk a little bit about the importance of the Wanderer A1 passive before we go to TLDR, and I'll talk about what's coming next and the fact that I'm thinking of taking a break. Explain more about why I would do so right before, not right before, but about a week before Wanderer release. Yeah. So these are the figures that we have for DPC, 2VV, 18% attack, 2VV, 2 DPC, and for like for Shime, remember is this C0 Faruzan, so for Shime is NA here. So quite simply, you can see from damage figures now, right? Yunjin Zhongli cannot measure up or has quite a fair bit of distance from the Bandit Layla. Why? There's a percentage difference, this is it. Okay, it's pretty big difference. I mean, we're talking about 34 to 41%. So Bandit Layla, sorry, Bandit Layla has a pretty big advantage. But to be fair, we are talking about C5 Bandit versus a C0 Yunjin, right? Although chances are higher that you would have a C5 Bandit versus C6 Yunjin, generally speaking. Especially if you're an old player. Or, okay, I shouldn't say old player. You're a long-time player. Okay? So, not entirely fair. And I will include C6 Yunjin later as the last category, but for now, let's look at the C6 Faruzan. Okay? Once we have C6 Faruzan, these are the figures. You see the Yunjin Zhongli is about 736k at C0. I mean, it's not too bad, but it's still worse than Bandit Layla, right? Still worse than Bandit Layla. And basically, the percentage differences are bigger. Generally speaking, it's a 2% plus 2%, because it's 36 to 43 instead of 34 to 41. And obviously, this increase in difference because the plus 20 CR from Cryo Layla, in this case Layla, on the Wanderer A1 passive, because C6 Faruzan gives you 40 CD, so that 20 CR becomes even more valuable, or the impact of it is even bigger. But an interesting thing to note here is that for Shime is actually slightly better than for DPC. Slightly better. Okay? You can see from this. But still within the range of using whichever artifacts roll better. Remember that. It's still within the range of whichever artifacts roll better. I know it looks very, very close. In some cases it looks like only slightly more, right? Like 4k more. But you will see a bigger difference later you see Yunjin. But nevertheless, it's still within the range of whichever artifacts roll better. Yeah? Which is not surprising because Yunjin's buff gain more from the higher damage bonus on 4 Shime. So let's see now the impact of C6 Yunjin. So now you see the difference is much, much smaller, right? The gap. Once we have C6 Yunjin, which is a much fairer comparison because we're talking about C5/C6 Bandit versus C0 Yunjin earlier. Now with C6 Yunjin and C5/C6 Bandit along with C6 Faruzan, you'll see that the Bandit Layla comp is still better, but the difference is at least half. It's now 14 to 21%. 14 to 21%, okay, depending on the constellations. But why is this comp performing this badly? Oh, sorry, I was looking at the wrong figure earlier. No wonder. Okay. So this is the figure I was talking about when I was talking about Shime being better than 4DPC and Yunjin Zhongli comp. Okay, so even at R1, C0 is still the 4DPC better, but gradually as we move on to the constellations, 4 Shime does get better. Okay, now going back to the C6 Yunjin, why are we still seeing a difference of 14 to 21% in the favor of the Bandit Layla comp? It's mainly because of the Wanderer's A1 passive. So just for comparison, right, just to prove what I'm saying, right, I'll show you guys the damage figures if Yunjin only had the Pyro Cryo effect. Now, I know it will never happen in reality unless you are facing both Pyro Cryo slimes at the same time and Wanderer manages to infuse both of them, hit both of them with his initial E, which can be doable if you really do have these enemies, or maybe some treasure hoarders that threw cryo bombs or stuff like that. But I just want to show you guys the comparison in theory. I know this is very, very conditional, but I'll show you guys the comparison in theory so that you can see how important the Wanderer A1 passive is. Okay, so you see here, we finally have red figures. What do the red figures mean? The red figures mean that the Bennett Layla comp is actually worse than the C6 Yunjin comp with Zhongli. The C5, C6 Bennett is actually worse than Yunjin. So Bennett is actually worse than Yunjin if this Geo Comp managed to do Pyro Cryo due to the enemies rather than the comp party members themselves. And it's a range of 1 to 9% worse. So it's a very, very different result, right? And the Wanderer A1 passive, it actually made such a big difference that instead of being better than the Yunjin Zhongli comp by 14 to 21%, it's actually worse now by 1 to 9%. So it's a huge variance. It's a huge variance. We are talking about like 20 plus to 30% difference. Oh, no, sorry, 15 to 30% difference. If I just do addition that way, obviously not necessary that way, but I can tell you guys why. Okay, because Yunjin really does buff more than Bennett to begin with. I always say this, Yunjin actually buffs more than Bennett, but you gotta remember that the Bennett Layla comp maximizes the Wanderer's A1 advantage by taking the two most important effects, which is the plus 30% attack and the plus 20 CR. Now I know people may argue about Hydro, I'll talk more about Hydro now. If you drop either one for Hydro, your overall damage will drop. Oh, sorry. Your overall damage will increase because it's additional 2 seconds, that's what I'm trying to say. But the extra 2 seconds is going to lower your DPS. It might lower your DPS or it might maintain the DPS. It's either maintain or lower. Because in order for you to maintain, you need the buffs to still be present for the extra 2 seconds. I give you a scenario, okay? C6 Wanderer plus Hydro will exceed Banner's buff and Fawn Obis buff. Because it's 14 seconds versus 12 seconds and 12 seconds. Now, not everyone will get C6 Wanderer, I know, but I'm just showing you guys. Okay? That extra 2 seconds doesn't always mean that it's good. In fact, I'll say it's only worthwhile to use Hydro if the Hydro's character's damage itself or buffs, damage less buff, can cover the drop from losing the Pyro or Cryo A1 passive effect on top of whatever that Pyro or Cryo character is bringing to the table. Okay, so it's not just about that character, it's also about the A1 passive effect, the Wanderer A1 passive effect. Like I said, it's very important because it makes such a big difference here. And yeah, I actually included this, but I wrote this before I decided to take a break. But I'll talk more about taking a break later. Now, lastly, I've not even included Freedom Sword in my comparison, which Injin Com can't use. So it's like if you have a Freedom Sword ready from Banner Layla, it's a no-brainer, just use Banner Layla. Even if you do not, using Banner Layla is still better, right? Because we're still talking about 14 to 21% difference. Unless you expect to always encounter Pyro Cryo enemies, which, come on, it's not realistic. Unless at a specific Spiral Abyss floor you do see that there's such enemies, then you can set it up accordingly. Oh, and by the way, C4 Wanderer effect doesn't really work for Yunjin only because the description is that you have to first trigger the passive. If you have Yunjin Zhongli and the two animal characters in the comp, unless enemies have the elemental application on them through their own attacks, etc., otherwise you won't be able to trigger this passive. Right? So if enemies have applied AoE elements to themselves or they are slimes, I can remember whether Spectres have the element on themselves. I think not. They have the immunity, but not the element on themselves, if I didn't remember wrongly. Okay, so in those scenarios, C4, yes, it will give you the benefit, but it's just way too conditional. Okay, so I hope this is clear how important the Wanderer A1 passive is, and it's not just about comparing the Geo versus Pyro Cairo, it's also about talking about the Hydro. Yeah? Okay. So let's go on to the TLDR. This is a quick video, okay? Although the math wasn't as quick, but let me think. Yeah, the math is actually quicker than me doing a lost prayer video, by the way. Just a lost prayer math. This is faster. Okay, Wanderer A1 passive Pyro Cryo effect is so good that it results in the Banded Layla comp being better than Yunjin Zoning comp by 14 to 21%, assuming C6 or C5 Banded versus C6 Yunjin. If you somehow encounter Pyro plus Cryo slimes and you infuse both on Wanderer A1 passive while in the Yunjin Zoning comp, or not just slimes, any kind of situation where you actually can infuse both Pyro and Cryo, then the Banded Layla comp actually becomes worse by 1 to 9%, depending on the constellations, right? But basically, to conclude, right, Yunjin actually does buff more than Banded, but Wanderer A1 passive is so strong that using both Pyro and Cryo gives you very strong results. If you drop either one for Hydro, actually I'm repeating what I just said in the previous session, but it's okay. I know some people just watched the TLDR session. So if you drop either one for Hydro, overall damage will increase, but longer duration, while the extra 2 seconds may either maintain or lower your DPS. Depending on whether, let me rewrite this to be clearer. Depending on whether buffs are still present for the extra 2 seconds. So I give you an example, C6 Wanderer plus Hydro will exceed your Bandit's buff and 4 non-Blitz buff duration. Bandit's buff lasts for 12 seconds, non-Blitz also lasts for 12 seconds. Your C6 Wanderer plus Hydro is gonna get about 14 seconds. So, or just having Hydro doesn't always mean that it is good. Okay, that's what I'm trying to say here. Now, obviously, not everyone will get C6 Wanderer. If you don't have C6 Wanderer, then the Hydro will help you fully maximize Bandit's buff, which could be a benefit. But like I said, it's just maintaining the DPS, right? Because my first 10 seconds already have the Bandit's buff. So at best, it maintains the DPS. But you gotta consider what you lose. You lose whatever that character is being replaced. So technically speaking, let's say if you replace Bandit with a Hydro character, then yes, you lose Bandit's buff. So that Hydro character must either buff more or deal more damage to cover that drop. Not just the drop of losing the Pyro Cryo A1 passive effect, whichever it is you choose to replace, although obviously Pyro is the better choice to replace, plus whatever that character brings to you. Okay? So in the case of Bandit, we are talking about 4 Nobilis plus Bandit's buff plus Pyro effect. So your Hydro character replacing Bandit must cover these 3. Now 4 Nobilis isn't so bad, that's still doable. Bandit's buff, yeah, you better have something strong enough to cover. Damage wise, still not so bad. Bandit not really doing much damage, so it's okay. But you do lose the 30% attack in return for a plus 2 seconds. So, okay, now I remember why I initially wrote it as overall damage would drop. Because you are losing your buffs. I should say may increase rather than will increase. Yeah, but I initially intend to explore it in future math guides, but I'll talk more about this later. Okay, so to conclude, I'll say it's a no-brainer to go for Bandit Layla over Yunjin Zhongli. Even Bandit Tiona is likely still better, even if we lose the 4 tenacity effect from Layla when we use Tiona as the substitute. Now, if you have Freedom Swarm that can be used on Layla, the difference will be even bigger than what I've covered in this video. Okay, you realize I have not done any comparison against the figures with Freedom Swarm. Once I bring that in, then Yunjin Zhongli is just left in the dust thanks to the Wanderer A1 passive. Now, for details on the rotation, energy, and comparison, etc., please refer to the specific sessions video. I'm not going to talk more about those. Okay. So yeah, bear in mind all of this, and really, this entire video, other than talking about the Yunjin Zhongli comp performance, is really also a piece on how important the Wanderer A1 passive is. So with all those in mind, maybe Mona will be good. I'm not sure whether it's enough to cover the loss of Bandit's buff plus the 30% attack buff. Generally speaking, Mona's Omen, if you can maintain it, it does do better than Bandit's buff, generally speaking. But with a 30% attack thrown in from the Pyro A1 passive effect, It's hard to say. I'm leaning more in favor towards Pyro in that scenario. Alright, so let me go to what's coming next. Now, obviously, I've finished the Yunjin Comp. I want to talk a little about this, okay? I've been struggling these past 2 weeks to find time to do the math. First week I was down with a strong virus, which after taking a stronger than usual course of antibiotics, because my doctor already knew there's a strong strain going around, so he already gave me a stronger antibiotics. But the virus is still not completely killed. I still have a very persistent bad chesty cough. I mean, you guys hear it in the video. I am suppressing it as much as I can while I'm doing the video. And worse still, my kid got infected with it too, and he's in the same situation, having cough now after the antibiotics completed. So that's my situation. I saw some comments saying my weapon comparison video is pointless because I excluded some weapons. Now I actually did address them other than the Memory of Dust, because I kinda wasn't expecting so many people to have Memory of Dust, to be honest. That's the reason why I did not include Memory of Dust. Because at least Skyward Atlas and Lost Prayers are on the standard banner, right? Yeah. So anyway, that comment reminded me of something that I've been thinking about for some time now. So just so you know, it's not a slow fade or knee-jerk reaction. It's something that I have been thinking about for some time now, which is that the effort versus the results for the math guide is kind of pointless too. You want to say my weapon comparison video is pointless? I can return the same thing and tell you that I feel like the effort versus the result for the math guides are all pointless too. Because it's too much effort. And what do I get in return? I spend so many hours and what do I get in return? And this is further compounded with my current situation, which is the sickness I've talked about and my baby as well. So it doesn't help that Wanderer weapon math also varies a lot per weapon, because I have to freaking retabulate the total number of attacks per loss per year buff, and that's talking about every 4 seconds. And then you have the solar per effect instead of 4 seconds, 6 seconds. And then you have the Dodoko Tunes where it's N2C instead of N3. So yeah, there's a lot of variation as opposed to other characters weapon math where it's a lot more easy for me to do. So with all this in mind, especially the whole point about me feeling that it has been pointless for some time now, really, let me repeat, this is not a knee-jerk reaction, okay? This is something that has been happening for some time now. I have been thinking about it for some time already. So I will take a break from Wanderer math and focus on recovering for both myself and my baby. When Wanderer is released, I'll enjoy actually playing the game instead of spending so much effort doing math and saving snarky comments. Okay? Just before his release, maybe I will do a constellation refinement comparison with banners in mind, but just maybe. I don't want to do any promises here. If it happens, good. If it doesn't, then at least you know. Okay? Regardless, I did do a quick constellation comparison previously, so that should help. Even if I don't end up doing the comparison with banners in mind, at least you have the previous comparison. Okay? I think it was in Wanderer Math Guide 2.1 and 2. But probably just refer to the 2.1. Okay? Now, these were the few comps that I was actually thinking of doing before I changed my mind, thanks to the comments. So, to be fair, it's not just for the comments, it's something that I've been thinking about for some time now. Okay? So, I'll probably test this out in actual gameplay rather than doing any math for it. So it's very straightforward, right? Wanderer Yelan C2 in comp, and then Wanderer with Mona with Freeze. So you have Mona being the buffer, replacing Banner, and maybe having Layla as well, doing her buffing role with Fawn of Tenacity and Freedom Sworn and her constant cryo application. The only problem with the Mona comp is whether there's enough Hydro application to maintain the freeze and in turn maintain her Omen bonus. But yeah. And then you have Sunfire Wanderer. Sunfire very straightforward, right? It's either Kazuha Banner or Jin Banner. And in this case, obviously, we use Jin Banner. Plus Faruzan, plus Wanderer. So it's 3 Animal, 1... what do you call that? 1 Pyro. Yeah. And maybe an attack speed Wanderer, one where each member of the team is somehow buffing his attack speed, and you know, just for farm spamming sake. But yeah, I'm not gonna do the math for these comps. I'm gonna take a break and focus on recovering. I need to find motivation for the math guys, to be honest with you guys. The motivation to continue doing. Okay. Yeah. So anyway, wasted opportunity, no comms for this. Now you know why my weapon. By the way, now you know why my weapon math only focus mainly on 4 weapons while talking about another 4 weapons. Okay, so I actually covered 8 weapons. It's just that the actual math I did for 4 weapons. It's because I had all these comms in mind. But yeah, it's not gonna happen now. So I'll do it as part of release testing. Over the days after Wanderer is released, I'll probably try all this out. Okay. Translation and refinement, maybe, but I won't guarantee, no promises. Alright. So anyway, thanks everyone for watching. I hope this video has been helpful to you guys. If you like the content, remember my video and click subscribe for more. And also remember, Wanderer A1 passive is very important. Alright, make sure to fully utilize it. Alright, thanks for watching. Bye.